Most of the time, when a high-profile figure is accused of a crime, we're looking at a few leaked messages or a single witness. But what do you do when the Los Angeles District Attorney says they are sitting on 40 terabytes of evidence? That is enough data to cover every second of a person's life for years. Today, we have to talk about David Burke, the artist the world knows as d4vd, and a black Tesla abandoned on a California street. Inside that car wasn't just a career-ending secret. It was the remains of a 14-year-old girl named Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The details coming out of the unsealed autopsy this week, they aren't just difficult to hear. They change everything we thought we knew about this case. Hey everyone! I'm glad you're here with me today. We've been following the developments in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case for months now, and I know many of you in the community have been waiting for the moment the silence finally broke. Well, that moment happened this week in a Los Angeles courtroom. We finally have the unsealed medical examiner's report, and we have the formal charges laid out by the district attorney. This isn't just another headline about a celebrity in trouble. This is a story about a massive power imbalance, a young girl from Lake Elsinore who had her whole life ahead of her, and a digital trail that investigators say leads directly to one of the most successful rising stars in music today. We're going to walk through this together, looking at the evidence as it's been presented, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comments as we go. There is a lot to process here, especially when you realize that while one person was on a world tour, another family was counting the days since they last heard their daughter's voice. Before we get into the timeline of that day in April 2025, we need to understand who Celeste was. Her parents, Jesus Rivas and Mercedes Martinez, recently shared a glimpse of her life with us. I want to read their words exactly as they provided them to the community through their attorney. The Rivas Hernandez family is absolutely devastated by the findings contained in the medical examiner's report involving the horrible and gruesome death of their beloved daughter. These findings have caused profound emotional pain for the family. They respectfully ask for privacy, understanding, and patience as they process this information. Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste. She was 14 years old. She had orthodontic braces. She had a small tattoo on her finger that said "Sure." By all accounts, she was a typical teenager who loved music, which, unfortunately, is likely how she first came into contact with David Burke. Now, on the other side, you have David Anthony Burke. Most of the world knows him as d4vd. He's 21 years old now, but his rise to fame was meteoric. He went from making music in his sister's closet to having billions of streams and a global following. He was the it kid of the alt-pop scene. But the district attorney, Nathan Hochman, is painting a picture of a man who was allegedly living a double life. According to the criminal complaint, this wasn't a sudden incident. The prosecution alleges that Burke engaged in an unlawful and inappropriate relationship with Celeste that began when she was only 13 years old. When you think about the influence a famous artist has over a young fan, the power dynamic is already skewed. But the state is alleging something much more intentional. They claim that as Burke's career began to skyrocket, the risk of this relationship coming to light became a threat to his financial future. District Attorney Hochman put it this way during the press conference, and I want you to hear his perspective on the motive. Celeste was just a child, under 14 years old, when David Burke allegedly engaged in repeated sexual relations with her. But Burke's actions did not allegedly stop there. When she threatened to expose his criminal conduct and devastate his musical career, Burke allegedly murdered her, cut up her body and stuffed her body in 2 bags that were placed in the front trunk of his car. That is a heavy allegation. It suggests that this was a calculated move to protect a brand. A murder for financial gain, as the legal documents describe it. The last time Celeste was known to be alive was April 23, 2025. Exactly 1 year ago this week. Investigators say she went to Burke's home in the Hollywood Hills that evening. She never walked out. For the next several months, Celeste was a missing person. Her family reported her as a runaway, desperately looking for any sign of her. Meanwhile, David Burke was continuing his career, performing for thousands of people, and moving on with his life. But you can't hide a secret like that forever, especially not in a city like Los Angeles where every street has eyes. In late July, a black Tesla was parked on Bluebird Avenue. It sat there for weeks. People walked past it. Neighbors noticed it. But nobody knew that the answers the Rivas Hernandez family was praying for were sitting right there, inside the front trunk of that car. As we move into the next part of this discussion, we're going to look at the moment that car was finally opened and the scientific evidence that the Los Angeles Police Department held close to their chest for 7 months. As we dive deeper into the timeline, we have to look at the period between April 2025 and September of that same year. For 5 months, while the music world was celebrating a rising star, a dark secret was quite literally sitting in the sun. In July 2025, a black Tesla was left on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills. It wasn't until late August that a passerby finally called it in as an abandoned vehicle. By the time it was towed on September 5th, it had been sitting for weeks. On September 8th, workers at the tow yard noticed something wrong. It wasn't just the flies, it was a scent that anyone in law enforcement or forensics knows all too well. When the Los Angeles Police Department opened the front trunk, or the frunk, of that Tesla, they found 2 black bags. And this is where the clinical details from the autopsy really show us the gravity of what occurred. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner, Dr. Odi Ukpo, finally released his findings this week after a 7-month security hold. I want to read his words because they reflect the frustration that both the family and the community have been feeling. After several months, I am grateful this information can now be released, not only to the public, but also to the grieving family enduring loss. It is unfathomable they have had to wait this long to learn what happened to their daughter. The transparency of the information contained in our findings and reports is essential for empowering the community to make informed changes to effectively reduce fear and allowing the community to take informed action. When they performed the examination on September 10th, the condition of the remains was challenging. Celeste was only 15 years old by the calendar, but the report notes she was likely killed just before her birthday, at 14. She weighed only 71 pounds when she was found. The cause of death was officially ruled as multiple penetrating injuries, specifically targeting the torso. One injury damaged her liver. Another passed between her ribs and into the chest cavity. But it's the condition of her limbs that points to a high level of calculation. Both her arms and both her legs had been removed. The medical examiner noted that the cuts were relatively flat, suggesting the use of a tool capable of cutting through bone. Even more telling was a detail about the lack of significant hemorrhaging at those sites, which leads investigators to believe the heart was no longer pumping when that happened. It was a deliberate, clinical effort to make her body fit into that small space in the front of the car. There's also a piece of physical evidence that might seem small, but it's crucial. Forensic specialists found small blue plastic fragments embedded in the cut surfaces of her remains. Now, why does that matter? It suggests that whatever tool was used was possibly a consumer-grade device, perhaps something with a plastic casing that chipped off during the process. It's those tiny details that often bridge the gap between circumstantial and convincing in a courtroom. While all of this was happening behind the yellow tape, the digital investigation was moving at a massive scale. We're talking about search warrants served on phones, tablets, and iCloud accounts. During the most recent hearing, the prosecution dropped a bombshell about what they found on Burke's devices. They described a significant amount of unlawful and inappropriate digital material involving minors. This wasn't just about one relationship, it was an alleged pattern. The defense, led by attorney Blair Burke, is pushing back hard. They haven't had the chance to go through all the data yet, and they told the judge. Let us be clear, the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. It's important to remember that as of right now, these are allegations. But when the district attorney says it's taking multiple computers a month just to upload the evidence, and they're still only 30% done, you start to realize the mountain David Burke is standing under. The state believes they have the what, the how, and with those 40 terabytes, they believe they have the why written in Burke's own words. So, as we stand here today, exactly 1 year since Celeste was last seen alive, the question that remains for everyone in this community is, how does a case like this even happen in the light of day? We have a rising star, a global audience, and a 14-year-old girl who was just starting to find her own voice. The legal path forward is going to be long. David Burke is currently being held without bail, and the district attorney has made it clear that because of the special circumstances, the financial motive, the lying in wait, and the silencing of a witness, the state could eventually seek the harshest penalties available under California law. We are looking at a potential sentence of life without the possibility of parole. But beyond the courtroom, there's a conversation we need to have as a community. Investigators are still processing that massive 40-terabyte mountain of data. It's a digital footprint that allegedly documents a year of inappropriate conduct and a desperate attempt to keep a career on track. It makes you wonder about the safeguards we have in place. How many other young fans are navigating these same high-pressure digital spaces, looking up to people who might not have their best interests at heart? The Rivas Hernandez family isn't just asking for a conviction. They are asking for a change in how we protect our children. Their attorney pointed out that for 7 months, while the public speculated and the music continued to play, the family was left in a state of unfathomable grief, denied even the basic truth of how their daughter passed. This case is a reminder that fame doesn't grant immunity, and a digital trail never truly disappears. As the preliminary hearing moves forward this May, more of that evidence is going to become public. We'll finally see the witness testimonies and the forensic links that the LAPD has been protecting so fiercely. I want to leave you with the image that the medical examiner described, the small tattoo on Celeste's finger that simply said, "Sure." It's a haunting detail in a case defined by silence. But the silence is over now. The truth is coming out, piece by piece, terabyte by terabyte. I'll be here to walk you through every update as it happens. In the meantime, I want to hear from you. When you look at the timeline and the evidence presented so far, what stands out to you the most? Is it the delay in the autopsy release, or the sheer scale of the digital evidence? Let's talk about it in the comments. Respect to the Rivas Hernandez family, and as always, thank you for being part of the syndicate. I'll see you in the next one. Now, as we look toward the future of this case, we have to talk about the weight of the justice system as it begins to move. David Burke isn't just facing a murder charge. He's facing what are known as special circumstances, legal enhancements that change the entire stakes of the trial. Prosecutors have officially added lying in wait, murder for financial gain, and the murder of a witness to the complaint. In California, those 3 phrases are the difference between a chance at parole and the possibility of the death penalty. While the district attorney's office hasn't officially announced if they will seek capital punishment, the door is now wide open. And during this most recent procedural hearing, the prosecution made it clear they aren't just relying on physical evidence from that Tesla. They are looking at Burke's digital life with a microscope. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman alleged in open court that the search warrants on Burke's iCloud and phone didn't just find messages. They found a significant amount of material that indicates a long-term, patterned exploitation of minors. This brings us to a moment of reflection for everyone watching this unfold. We live in an era where the line between a fan and a famous artist is thinner than ever. We see these stars on our screens every day. We feel like we know them. But as this case allegedly shows, that sense of connection can be used as a tool. The Rivas Hernandez family is now left to wait for May 1st, the day the preliminary hearing is set to begin. That will be the first time the public sees the evidence that supposedly bridges the gap between a 40-terabyte cloud account and the tragedy on Bluebird Avenue. The defense maintains that the actual evidence will clear David Burke's name. They are preparing for a vigorous defense, and in our system, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But for the community in Lake Elsinore, and for the thousands of people who have followed Celeste's story, the proof they are looking for is more than just a legal verdict. They are looking for an answer to how a 14-year-old girl could disappear into the shadows of a celebrity's life for an entire year without the world noticing. As we close this chapter today, I want to thank you for sticking with the facts and keeping the conversation respectful. This is a difficult story, but it's one that needs to be told so we can understand the risks in the digital spaces our children inhabit every day. As we close out this deep dive, it's important to acknowledge the community that hasn't stopped saying her name. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez was more than a tragic headline. She was a daughter born to parents who worked tirelessly after immigrating from El Salvador to give her a life of opportunity. She was a sister and a friend who, according to her mother, was just a sweet child who happened to love music. This week, as we hit that 1-year mark since she was last seen alive on April 23, 2025, the digital world she inhabited is being forced to reckon with the reality of what allegedly happened in the shadows. We've seen reports of a Discord server where, as early as August 2024, users were allegedly asking about the missing girl, while the music continued to play. It raises a heavy question for all of us. In an age of instant connection, how did a 14-year-old stay hidden in plain sight for so long? The legal battle ahead will likely be one of the most significant trials Los Angeles has seen in years. With David Burke's defense team, led by high-profile attorney Blair Burke, vowing to vigorously defend his innocence, and the district attorney's office preparing to present what they call voluminous forensic and digital material, the complexity of this case is only growing. We are waiting to see if additional charges or even additional suspects will emerge as that 40-terabyte mountain of data is finally fully processed. But through the legal filings and the technical jargon of the autopsy, the heart of this story remains in Lake Elsinore. It's in the movie nights that will never happen again and the songs that will never be sung. The Rivas Hernandez family has shown incredible strength, waiting 7 months just to hear the truth that the rest of the world is only now beginning to grasp. In the last few days, the atmosphere inside the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center has shifted from quiet investigation to an all-out legal battle. David Burke appeared in court this week, not as the polished artist the world knows from magazine covers, but in orange jail scrubs and shackles. Exactly 1 year to the day after Celeste was last known to be alive, Burke sat next to his attorneys and spoke only 2 words, "Yes, ma'am," in response to the judge. It's a haunting coincidence of timing that hasn't been lost on anyone in that courtroom. We've now learned that the prosecution has been working on this with a level of intensity we rarely see. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman revealed that they didn't just have one grand jury. They convened 3 separate investigative grand juries between November and February to build this case piece by piece. She also confirmed that investigators utilized a wiretap operation during the probe. This tells us the LAPD wasn't just looking at physical evidence, they were listening. But perhaps the most significant update is the strategy being used by Burke's defense team. In a move that has surprised many legal observers, Burke is refusing to waive his right to a speedy hearing. Usually, in a case with 40 terabytes of data, the defense wants months, even years, to prepare. Instead, they are forcing the state's hand. They want the evidence brought into the light of day, immediately. Because of this, Superior Court Judge Charlene Olmedo has set a massive, 4 to 5 day preliminary hearing to begin on May 1st. This means that in just a few days, the voluminous evidence the state has been talking about will finally be laid out in public. We're going to hear the specific details of what was found in those iCloud backups. We're likely going to hear about the digital evidence that the prosecution says is so sensitive it can only be viewed on a secure government computer. The prosecution's theory is now crystal clear. They allege that Celeste was killed on or around April 23, 2025, the very day she was last seen at Burke's home, and that her body was dismembered about 2 weeks later. They are arguing that this was a crime of preservation, a desperate act to stop a 14-year-old girl from telling a truth that would have ended a multimillion-dollar career before it even truly began. As we wait for May 1st, the Rivas Hernandez family continues to stand at the center of this storm. For a year, they lived with the silence. Now, they are living with a truth that is almost too heavy to bear. But as the chief medical examiner said this week, transparency is about more than just a court case. It's about social justice and prevention. So as we stand here today, exactly 1 year since Celeste was last known to be alive, we are left with a story that feels like it was written for a dark Hollywood script, except the tragedy is real, and the loss is permanent. We have a rising star in David Burke who, according to prosecutors, chose his career over a human life. We have 40 terabytes of data that will likely take years to fully understand. And most importantly, we have the memory of a 14-year-old girl who just wanted to be heard. The silence that surrounded this case for 7 months is finally over. The shoe tattoo on Celeste's finger may have been a haunting image of the secrecy she was forced into, but the justice system is now speaking louder than ever. As we wait for the doors of that courtroom to open on May 1st, I want to leave the last word to the community. This case teaches us that digital footprints don't wash away, and no amount of fame can hide a secret forever. Thank you for walking through this difficult timeline with me. I'll be back the moment the preliminary hearing begins to break. Until then, stay vigilant, look out for one another, and keep the Rivas Hernandez family in your thoughts. I'm the narrator for the True Crime Syndicate. I'll see you in the next one.